One of the key strengths of the Mongol army in the first half of the 13th century was the consistent quality of its generals. While Subutai and Jebe may be more famous, perhaps the general Chinggis Khan put the most trust in during his lifetime was Mukhali of the Jalair, who served as the sword of the Great Khan in China from 1217 until 1223, while Chinggis was in Central Asia. It is indicative of this trust that Chinggis never feared that Mukhali would abandon his post or declare independence, problems the Jin suffered routinely with their generals. Command in North China was given to Mukhali in late 1217. The Jin Empire had lost considerable men and territory, as well as their capital city of Zhengzhou, but the area north of the Yellow River still needed to be fully conquered, and south of the river the Jin were strong. Chinggis had to deal with dissident tribes in Mongolia, as well as news that his enemy Kuklug, son of Tayang Khan of the Naiman, had taken control of the Kara-Khitai Empire. Thus it was left to Mukhali to continue the battle against the Jurchen Jin. Mukhali spent several months in late summer and fall 1217 planning with Chinggis the campaign he would undertake, during which time he was made Prince of State and Grand Preceptor of the Empire. Mukhali returned to China in fall or winter 1217 with an army of 23,000 Mongols and Ongud, mainly horse archers, light and heavy cavalry. 77,000 Jurchen, Khitan and Chinese made up the rest of the army, the Khitan and Jurchen fighting in similar style to the Mongols, while the Chinese were mainly infantry and operated siege equipment. With limited numbers of Mongols, Khitans and Han Chinese were increasingly important as both reserves of manpower and in administering the conquered regions. Consequently, greater Chinese presence in the Mongol force tended to help increase Chinese defections to the Mongols. Mukhali set up his headquarters at the recently taken Jin capital of Zhengzhou, now renamed to Yen. Mukhali's plan of attack was a three-pronged assault to wrest control of territory north of the Yellow River still held by the Jin. From Yen, Hebei and Shantung were to be the main targets, as well as Shanxi, while from Datong, a force ideally supported by Tangut auxiliaries would focus on Shanxi. Things were off to a rough start as the chief minister of the Tangut refused to supply troops, the start of an increasingly rocky relationship between the Mongols and the Tangut. A retaliatory raid towards the Tangut capital convinced them to aid Mukhali for now. Mukhali focused on Hebei initially, all along encouraging militia units to join his forces. The Mongols, always relatively few in number, always wanted considerable amounts of Chinese in their armies to take on expendable roles, while providing useful local information. One militia leader who joined Mukhali in late 1217 was Chang Zhu, who quickly became one of Mukhali's most trusted lieutenants. By spring 1218, Mukhali trusted Chang Zhu enough that he left him in command of the army in Hebei while Mukhali went to Shanxi. Chang Zhu would go on to take over 30 towns in the province in the following months for the Mongols. In Shanxi, Mukhali concentrated on the Fen River, one of the province's leading agricultural regions. Late in the spring, however, a Jin offensive retook a number of the cities Mukhali had taken. In an effort to encourage even more defections to the Mongols to offset the Jin's still considerable manpower reserves, Mukhali tried to be more lenient to the conquered people to convince mass desertion. However, the already well-established Mongol reputation for massacres proved a little discouraging to many. While the Jin were on the back foot, they were still holding the mandate of heaven. Jin morale was weakened, but not broken, and the Jin Empire could still bring thousands upon thousands of troops to bear. And while defections harmed the Jin's war effort, they did not hamstring it. Reassessing matters, Mukhali withdrew his forces from Shantung, abandoning it to the Redcoats and the Song for the time being, and focused on Shanxi and western Hebei. By October, northern Shanxi was securely under Mongol control. The following year, 1219, progressed well for Mukhali. While Chinggis Khan was marching west to the Khwarezmian Empire, Mukhali succeeded in expelling the Jin from most of Shanxi. The Jin, during this whole matter, had continued to commit to annual offensives against the southern Song, and in summer 1219 the Jin suffered a massive defeat at at the hands of the Song in the Han River Valley. Such conflict may seem strange to us. Why would the Jin waste their precious resources against the Song while also facing the threat of the Mongols, rather than try to create an anti-Mongol alliance? However, both sides were opposed to such an alliance at this time. The Song wished to reclaim territory lost to the Jin in the early 12th century, while the Jin Emperor Xuanzong hoped to offset losses to the Mongols by conquering Song territory. Ultimately, it served only to waste Jin resources and make Mukhalai's job a little easier. Jin Song Warfare continued annually until Xuanzong's death in 1224. Over the course of early 1220, Mukhalai returned to Hebei, taking the central garrison of Taming. By August, Mukhalai was campaigning in eastern Hebei and even sending forces to Shantung again. In October, the chief city of Shantung, Jinan, surrendered to Mukhalai without a struggle, bringing considerable area along with it. Mukhalai's leniency, backed by the alternative of the Mongol sword, was paying dividends, encouraging voluntary submission, which greatly aided the spread of Mongol control and doubt in the long-term chances of the Jin, who spent much of 1220 occupied with the Song. Showcasing how the scales of fate were tipping, when Mukhalai heard of a Jin army being formed to retake Shantung, he intercepted it at Huangling Khan, and again at Mingchao, decisive victories which illustrated Mongol military might over the Jin, and kept them from re-entering Shantung. Around this time, the Jin sent an embassy to Chinggis Khan in Central Asia to discuss possible peace terms, with little success. Chinggis demanded the Jin Emperor have his rank demoted from Wangti to Wang, recognize Chinggis as his sovereign, and cede Shanxi to the Mongols. Emperor Xuanzong refused the humiliation of such a submission, and hostilities continued. By November 1220, Mukhalai was on the outskirts of the Jin capital of Kaifeng, but that city's defenses were too strong for him to press. Instead, he besieged Tongping over the winter, which, after being reduced to starvation and cannibalism, surrendered in May 1221. Around then, the Song sent an emissary to Mukhalai, one of the members of which, Chao Hong, provides us with a description of the general as generous, friendly, informal, interested in other cultures, as well as very strong, an excellent archer, planner, and with an impressive mustache. This embassy seems to have done much to boost Mukhalai's spirit on the conquest. Aware of the Jin and Song warfare, Mukhalai believed that this diplomacy would be the start of an anti-Jin alliance between Song and Mongol, allowing a quicker, two-front conquest of the Jin. With renewed energy, Mukhalai focused his efforts on taking Shanxi from the Jin, with the Tangut providing some troops. The rest of 1221 was spent in northern and central Shanxi, taking cities. In winter 1221 to 1222, Mukhalai took Foshu and Fangshu in the Low River Valley, and during a celebratory feast in Fangshu, heard that many of the cities he had put such effort into taking in Shanxi were in revolt. Poor old Mukhalai, increasingly exhausted with the seemingly endless number of cities which had to be taken and retaken, left his lieutenant Munkbuka in command in Shanxi, and in spring 1222 crossed the Yellow River to crush the revolts, then deal with a Jin offensive into the region. By fall 1222, Mukhalai had to return to Shanxi to help Munkbuka, who was bogged down in the continuous sieges, especially on major cities like Chang'an and Fengjian, which resisted Mongol efforts to force them. By early 1223, Mukhalai's luck finally ran out. The commander of the Tangut contingent was killed, causing the Tangut to abandon both Fengxiang and Mukhalai's army. Mukhalai and Munkbuka were unable to take Fangshan and were forced to lift the siege. At similar time, the Jin retook the important city of Hocheng at the joining of the Wai and Yellow Rivers. The loss of such a strategic site, the lack of trust between the Tangut leaders to the Mongols, and the sudden end to Mukhalai's victories seem to have encouraged the Tangut kingdom to begin peace talks with the Jin Empire. Tired, overworked, and stressed, The great general suddenly became ill, and in March or April 1223, Mukhali of the Jalair died of illness, around 50 years of age. Supposedly, his last words were lamenting how he had failed to take Kaifeng for his master. The death of Mukhali had a huge effect on the course of the Mongol conquest of China. With Chinggis still absent on campaign, Mukhali had been the highest-ranking Mongol in the theater. On learning of his death, revolt broke out across the conquered territory, and the Jin found new heart. The Korean peninsula threw off Mongol rule and would remain outside Mongol control until the 1230s, while Mukhali's son Bol and his brother Daosun took command in China. They were not the equal of Mukhali. The Jin were able to retake southern Shanxi before Bol could push them back, and in Shantung, the Redcoats expanded with support from the Song. After Xuanzong's death in 1224, peace agreement was reached between the Song and the Jin. While Bol and Daosun would continue to battle the Jin, their campaigns would be much more limited than Mukhali's. Mukhali's death ended the momentum of conquest that had begun in 1211, and Chinggis himself did not return to China except for his final campaign against the Tangut in 1227, during which he himself passed on. It would not be until the reign of his son and successor Ergadai that major operations would begin again against the Jin dynasty. While there are a few videos still to be made on this period in China, such as on the Redcoats in Shantung and early Mongol administration in northern China, we will soon begin to look at the western expansion of the Mongol Empire, the invasion of the Kara-Khitai and the Khwarezmian Empires, and the beginning of what we could perhaps call the Mongol World War.